Hi there, it's Toby Salami once again, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can change queries on a page without doing a full page reload. This particular page has three different content types. You can see, first of all, we have red notifications, which is a CCT. It basically fetches all the notifications a user has read in the system. In our last video, we demonstrated something about notifications. If we click here to add something as a notification that's read, it disappears from here. And we can come to publish pages. We can see that these are all the published pages we have on the site. If we come back to red notifications, we can see the notifications we just checked out. We can see on the published post here, this is from the post type of posts. And we have finally draft pages, which is all the pages on the site that are currently listed as drafts. We're going to discuss how this changing of page queries can be applied in real-life examples using both Cloudflare and Google Drive. So please stick with me to the end of this video and I'm going to explain it to you in detail and as simple as possible. Let's start from where it all starts, the plugins. I used Elementor here, but that's because it's my page builder of choice. You can of course use Bricks Builder or the Gutenberg editor, your choice. Whatever I will display in this video, you can do it in any of these page builders. Now, you want to install JetEngine. That's going to be the pillar of the entire demonstration here. You want to install JetSmartFilters because that's what we're going to need to display and change the queries on the page. Here's what we're going to show in this video. First, we're going to create content types. When we speak of content types, we're not just talking about custom content types, as in the case with JetEngine. We're also talking about custom post types and be able to show how to change queries between these content types. Second, we're going to create a general listing. And third, we're going to create all the queries that we're going to need for this demonstration. Fourth, we're going to create a smart filter. The smart filters will be used to change the queries in the front end, as I said before. And fifth, we're going to set the page up and test. And lastly, we're going to discuss all the use cases for changing queries without reloading the page. So let's begin with the very first one, create content types. Just keep in mind, we already have this CCT that we created in our last video that we used to demonstrate how you can show site notifications on the site. You can check that video out. It's going to be linked somewhere up here. Just keep in mind that I wanted to create a custom content type to show you that you can switch between content types in the front end. So you have site notifications, which is a CCT. You also have post, which is a regular post type. You also have pages, which is another regular post type. You can switch between all of them, but I'll show you that later in this video. Our next step is to create a general listing, and let's do that now. To create a general listing, we're going to come inside of the listing menu item here. Inside of JetEngine, come to listing/components. Next, you want to click on add new listing item. Now, on what do you base this listing item as the listing source? It doesn't really matter. Right now, you just want to pick anything of your choice. I'm going to use Query Builder, and I'm going to come inside here to query and select the query of notifications on site, which I demonstrated in the previous video. You want to watch that, but just keep in mind, this is any query we're selecting here. Next, we want to select a listing name. We can call it whatever we want. Let's call it holding all items for all queries. That works for us. We're going to set our listing view to Elementor or Gutenberg, whichever is our choice here. Or if we have Bricks Builder enabled, we can also use Bricks Builder here. But we're using Elementor for demonstration purposes, so just follow me. Next, we want to create listing item. Once we're inside here, all we have to do is to add the various widgets that are going to be linked to particular queries that will change in the front end. If that's confusing, just hold on, okay? Let's go to our next step. Our next step is to create all the queries. To create them, we're going to come inside of the JetEngine Query Builder right here. Once we're inside Query Builder, we can create queries for various things. And in this particular use case, I'm going to create queries for our posts, our pages, and our site notifications. And in particular for site notifications, I'm going to create a query for site notifications that have already been viewed. And our first query here will be our query of posts. So let's query post. Let's say query of published posts. So we're going to leave the query type as post query. We're going to scroll down to the post type. We're going to select post as the post type, of course. We're going to select the post status as published because that translates to what this query is going to do, right? We're going to click on add query and we're done with our first query. The only problem with that query is that the name of the query is what's going to show in the front end. So because of that, we want to adjust this a little bit. Instead of saying query of published post, let's simply call this published posts. we can update the query. We'll come back here to the query builder and we're going to create another query. In this query, we're going to call it published pages. If I can spell published. And next, we're going to come to post type and select pages. In post status, we're going to select published, right? Good. We're going to create our third query. And this time, we're going to call it drafts pages because we want to select all pages, but only those in drafts. So we're going to select and type in drafts pages. Now we're going to select post query, come to post, select pages, and inside of the post status, this is where it's different. We're going to select draft. And we're going to click on add query. Now, all of these are custom post type. And you would ask, it doesn't really make much sense. You can simply just add all the post types here to one single query. But stick with me and I'll explain it in a bit, okay? Next, you want to add another query. And this time, we're adding a query of site notifications. We already have one that's showing in the front end here because that's what's determining all of the notifications that are showing here, right? But these are the unread notifications. So let's create a query that shows all the notifications that have been read. We demonstrated this where we added a query for the unread notifications in a previous video. So you're going to have to watch that if you want to understand it. But just keep in mind, we're creating a query for a custom content type right now. Whatever the content type is, doesn't matter. Let's just create it. We want to show how distinct it can be. Read notifications is the name we want to call the query. We want to come to query type and select custom content type. Next, we want to come to content type and select site notifications, which is the CCT we created here in the previous video. Next, we want to add a query, a new query where we're going to check for the item ID and we're going to compare that and say that if it is in the list of items in the data store, we're going to type in store and get the store of read notifications and apply, and we're going to add query. That's all we need there. We want to just show all of the notifications that a user has read. Good. Now, we have three different queries here, don't we? We have a query of read notifications. We have that of draft pages. We have that of published pages. We have that of published posts. Oh, that makes it 4, right? Good. We're up for our next step. Before we move on to creating our filters, let's come back to our previous step. And we want to add items here. Let's add a flexbox layout. We want to add whatever structure we want. In bricks, you're going to want to add a container or a section, whatever is your choice. In Gutenberg, you want to do the exact same thing. Once you've done this, you want to add the dynamic field widget, which is available on all the page builders. So dynamic field, whether you're using bricks or Gutenberg or Elementor, it's all there. Once the dynamic field is added, you want to point this to the title. And the reason for this is because the title appears on all custom post types, right? Good. Next, you want to add another dynamic field. And this time, instead of fetching the title, you want to fetch something else. Let's scroll all the way down to the notifications custom content type here, as you can see. And we want to fetch the notification content because in some cases, you're going to have the notification content fetched. In some cases, you're going to have the post title fetched. In either case, it just works with one single listing. Now, you can make this into whatever you want, but I'm just going to show a bare bones simple example that you can understand. Let's style this up a bit, shall we? In the first case, we're going to come here to style, and we're going to change the size of the typography to something a bit bigger. We can see it here because, of course, this doesn't apply to this particular query. This particular query, if you recall, is based on this particular query type, the query of notifications. So it's only natural the post title doesn't show here. Remember, in the front end, we're going to change the query. So it makes sense that this doesn't show now, but it will show in the future. Just keep in mind that's just why it doesn't show. Next, you want to select this one. This one shows because we're fetching the notification content, right? And we want to come to style here and do the exact same thing. We're going to set it to something large. I don't know. Was that heading 4? Yeah, heading 4. Good. Now, for both of them, we've set it to a large size. It looks good for us. Now, we need to do one more thing. Let's style this up a little bit so it's in tune with our front end page here. Let's set the background color to something like this. Let's also set the text to a nice color. We're going to do it for both. And once we're done with that, we can also give it a little bit of padding just so it looks good at all times. And lastly, we're going to do something to both dynamic fields. Now, the idea here is to make each dynamic field invalid if it doesn't matter. For example, if you're loading in the front end, the custom post types. All of them have titles, but the custom content type of notification doesn't have a title because it's not a post type, it's a custom content type, right? Good. Now, to invalidate each of these dynamic fields when they don't matter, just select the dynamic field and scroll down here and toggle on hide if value is empty. Good. We're going to select the second one and do the exact same thing here. Now, remember, this is a bare bones example. You can make this into whatever you need it to be, but I need you to understand the concept here. Next, you want to click on publish because, of course, we want to publish this listing, right? We're free now to move on to our next step, which is to create a smart filter. To create the smart filter, we're going to come into filter right here. We're going to select a filter name. What name are we going to give it? A name of your choice. Let's call this change queries. Next, we're going to select the radio field here. And that's just because it's my filter type of choice. You can also use the select filter type for this. Next, you're going to want to select data source. And when you scroll down, you're going to see JetEngine Query Builder. That's not the one you want to select. You want to select JetEngine Query Builder Switcher. And now is where it gets interesting. Because right now, you can select all of those queries that you previously created and base your query on them. If this is already sounding complicated, it means you need to subscribe because I only cover concepts on this channel that will change your web development game forever. But I'll make it simple, so stay with me, okay? Next, you need to select your query. What query will be selected here? Well, let's try. First, you want to select read notifications because you want to show all of the notifications on the site that the user has read, right? Good. But you can select more. You can select publish pages, you can select publish posts, and draft pages. Now, you can see where all of this is going, can't you? Once you come down here to query variable, what is going to be the query variable? It's simple. You can come here to this icon on your right and select switch JetEngine query. And this does the magic. Leave everything else as is and click on update. We're done with creating our queries. Now, we want to move on to the next step, and that is set page up and test. To do that, let's close this out and open edit page. First, we want to take out this placeholder container we have here. We want to add a new container. To add it, we're just going to type in container. Once that's added, we want to add inside here the smart filter. So we're going to type filter. Which of them are we going to select? Remember, we chose the radio filter, right? So we're going to drag that in here. Next, we want to pick the filter. The filter, we called it change of queries, right? So we're going to select that here. We're going to set the filter for JetEngine. We're going to set the apply type to Ajax because we want it to reload without having a full page reload. So we're going to leave it as Ajax. Good. Next, we want to style this up a bit. You don't need to watch how I do that. Let's just style this up to look a bit decent. Next, we want to add a listing. The listing we're going to add is, of course, the listing grid we created previously. And once we drag that listing widget in there, we want to select the listing and we called it holding all items for queries. And that makes sense. Now let's leave the columns numbers 1. We'll leave it as bad as it looks and we're just going to style it a little bit. If we come to the listing grid here, we need to give the listing grid a CSS ID. And for the fun of it, we're going to call this ID. We're going to copy that, come to the filter here, and where we have the JetEngine filter for this, we're going to select the query ID. We're going to paste ID in there for the query ID, and we're almost done here. Once we click on publish again and come to the front end here, to the demo web application page, we're going to refresh, and now if you click on read notifications, you see all the notifications that the user has read. If you click on publish pages, you see all of the pages that the user has published. If you click on publish posts, these are all the posts on the site. If you click on draft pages, you see all the pages that are in draft. You can test that by coming to the back end and see it working here. If you come here to pages and click on all pages here, you can see that these are all the pages on the site. You can see that you have certain pages as drafts. If you click on draft here, you see the 3 pages displayed here, and those are the same pages displayed here. And these all make sense because you can use this to show groundbreaking manipulations. But I'm going to first of all show you how you can come to the back end and in the filter settings, set a default query to show. If we come to filter here, come back into smart filters, we can come down here to use default filter value. And once we toggle that on, you have this empty space here. And it says that the value will be applied to the provider once via an AJAX request when the filter is added to the page. And that's so confusing because now we don't know what filter value to add here, do we? Except we do. If we come to JetEngine here and come back into the query builder, in fact, we already have queries opened here. Let's look at one of the queries here. Let's say that by default, we want the front page to load, and after it loads, we want the red notifications to show. To do that, we're going to come into queries, we're going to select red notifications, and we're going to look at the URL of that particular query we edited. If we look at this URL here, we can look at this last bit here where it has ID equals 17. Let's copy that number 17 and come back into the filter here and paste the value 17 here, because the value of this particular filter, which is going to be the default value, should be equivalent to the query ID. Now, if you update and you come to the front end and you refresh this, notice what happens here. By default, the red notifications is selected. You can see it visually selected here because, of course, we did not add that when we were editing this page. So let's just style that a little bit so it looks exactly as we want it to. If we come back into the style here and select the item here, we can select the checked item to have a background color of white. And when it has a white background color, we know it's checked, right? If we come to the front end and we refresh this again, let's see what happens now. The red notifications is automatically selected and it's filtered accordingly. Now we can select publish pages, we can select publish posts, we can select drafts pages, whatever we intend to do. Now, what's really happening here is that the entire queries on which this listing is based are being changed. If you want to see how that applies in a real-life situation, I'm going to show you that in our next step. And it's the last one, so let's discuss use cases. I have a few sites opened here, and by few, I mean two, Cloudflare and Google Drive. Now, let's just see how it can be used in this particular complicated situation. Now, this is a Cloudflare dashboard. Of course, I use Cloudflare for a variety of things. I'll cover that in a future video, but right now, let's pay attention to what this particular change of queries can be used for here. On the Cloudflare dashboard, you have the workers and pages page, right? And now, inside of this page, you have workers and pages all listed here. Now, I don't know how it's set up in the backend, but all I know is that when you come to filter by here, you have two different content types able to be selected from. So you can basically switch between them using the smart filter here. If we select pages, we can see what's similar to the regular listing right here. If we click on workers, we can see what's similar to what we have in JetEngine, where we have nothing showing up in the listing and we have a message such as this. Now, you can see how this can be applied in a real-life situation, but we have more. If you look at the sort by here, you can see that they have various metrics by which to sort the posts, like errors and requests and median CPU time. These things are so custom, it could demand that you create a different query for them. So, if you create a different query in the front end here, clicking on any of these filter types will switch the query in the back end and have the listing that shows in the front end show as you want it to. Imagine that inside the listing, you have, as I've done before, created a listing here, and you have added the different possible variations of widgets that are needed for all the custom content types. Now, loading that particular listing will make it appear like the entire listing changed. In fact, you can use a different section inside here, for example, a different container here, and based on a dynamic visibility condition, show or hide any of this depending on which custom post type is loaded. And that makes absolute sense. Now, let's look at the second use case here. Inside of Google Drive, when you open on this neat Google Drive page, you have this type. Look at the filter and look at all of the different types you have here. Now imagine on a typical WordPress site, you have a dashboard that you've created and you have all of these different content types created here, whether it's a CPT or a CCT or even a gallery or repeater or whatever you can query. Just keep in mind that any of these content types can be filtered and changed in the front end here. And all of this will be done without reloading the page. Look also to the next filter here called location. As you can see here, you can select my drive, shared with me, start, trashed. These things are, in a way, changing the query in the front end here. One that I'm particularly intrigued about here is the shared with me option here. Once you click on this, it is supposed to filter and get all of the posts that are shared with me. I'm literally with this my particular user account here, right? Now, this will make complete sense in a future video. So you want to look at the top or the right here to see if the video has been published. I'm going to release it in the coming days. The video will show you how you can apply this same change of queries in the front end in order to check posts that are shared between users of a particular site under one organization on the same site, so that all of them have the same capabilities on every single post. If you want to see that, subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be the first to be notified once the video is out. Now, here's a question for you. What do you think you can make use of this for? Also, what use cases would you like me to show you in a future video that I can show you without messing with your head? Also, I want you to leave a comment down below explaining to me whether it's complicated, the concept I've explained, or whether it's simple and you want me to go even more complicated. There's a lot in store for you, so you should be here for all of it. My name is Toby Salami once again, and until next time, stay dynamic.